Hello, and welcome to the Tuning In podcast. I'm Dana Evans, your inner voice and emotional support coach. In this podcast, we explore the deep wisdom that lives in our bodies, emotions, and inner voice. Together, we'll shed the layers that no longer serve us, creating space to tap into the flow of life and experience true ease. So, are you ready to join me? Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Tuning In podcast. I was really debating what to talk about today, and I'm sitting here eating a fresh baked cookie that is so delicious. It is my favorite recipe. It's by Claire Savitz, and she has a YouTube channel called Dessert Person, and she has this really delicious chocolate chip cookie recipe, and I made it this morning. I woke up at 5:30 and I thought, what will I do with my early morning? And baking cookies was definitely on the top. So that is what we did this morning, me, myself, and Mia. And then I just ate one. They're so good. But as I was eating that, I thought, I want to share about a cleanse that I did recently. And it's kind of a funny way to flip back, right, to sharing about a cleanse. But this cleanse was really lovely for me. And I want to talk a little bit more about it because I feel like end of December, early January is when it's so conditioned, right? But people start talking about, I need to eat better. I need to get in better shape. I need to take better care of my body. I need to be healthier, would be the key word. And what that often then triggers is some sort of meal plan, diet plan, workout plan. And where is that planning coming from? Well, it's coming from the origin of all plans, which is the mind. But more than that, it's coming from the conditioned mind. It's coming from the mind who is being seen or shown and told that things need to happen. This whole idea of a fresh start of the new year being like such a concept, right, that we've put into place. I fall into this trap as well. Don't get me wrong. And this is why I want to talk about it. But there may be a time that is right for you to kind of reset with your health. And that may or may not be in January or the start of the new year. So that's what I want to talk about today when it comes to doing a cleanse or starting a workout plan or a new diet. And these are words that I'm using because I know these are well-used words. I don't really resonate with them anymore, but I'm going to use them because I feel like we all know what we're talking about when I say these words. But so I did recently do a 2-week cleanse. It's from this company. It's called Frequency Tea, and it was a parasite detox. And it was pretty straightforward as far as cleanses go, where effectively you were drinking this 32 ounces of this parasite herb tea every morning. Then you weren't eating until 11, and you weren't having coffee, though I did have a little bit, or food all morning. And then between 11 a.m. and 7 p.m., you could eat food, though the recommendation was pretty much a vegan diet. So lots of vegetables, a few simple grains, but any cleanse is it's like no gluten, no dairy, no alcohol, no substances, no caffeine. I mean, anymore, it's like, yeah, you get the gist. And you took supplements 4 times during the day. So I started this, and the way I found it was really organic. I was feeling a call to do some sort of parasite cleanse. And this came up while I was doing a projector dream circle in October into November. And so I was kind of doing this dream circle, and I was feeling like there was a lot of clearing out that had been happening. So this has been happening all year. I moved this year, right? So at the beginning, there was a lot of physical clearing out of my space. There was a lot of getting rid of old stuff. There was a lot of letting go. We physically moved our stuff from one state to another. And then even when we got here, like I've continued to do a lot of clear out of stuff. And that was really, really good for me. And then I went into this launch. I released the emotional edit, the second round of the emotional edit, which we have now completed, but it was so powerful. And during that launch, I was working with my coach, Lauren Armstrong, and holy guacamole, did a lot of shit come up. And I'm not saying like just launch stuff. This was old stuff. I mean, I had things come up, like an experience that I had with a friend like 4 years ago, where all of a sudden that came up to be seen through my eyes now. And I had like a huge cry release shedding around that, which then allowed me to call that friend and say things that I didn't even know or wasn't even aware of back then, and like closing cycles. So a lot of emotional stuff came up. I had a lot of past lives coming up, and that was really powerful during this dream time. And a lot of stuff also was super interesting coming up around children and babies, and my body slash unconscious mind really crystallizing that that's not something that I desire in this lifetime. And it's something that's kind of like floated around for me, but it was coming through. I had these really intense dreams of like me talking to people in the dreams and telling them that I wasn't going to have children. It was so interesting, but like that felt like a big unclogging as well, because it felt like nothing that John and I had like totally decided on, though we'd known like unless it becomes something we want, it's not something we want. Like we're very clear on like that we're not wanting it, but all of a sudden it was like my body was telling me and solidifying that within me. Of course, I feel like I always say I reserve the right to change my mind at any time, or my body to change its tune. Anyway, really interesting, right? So that was coming up, and all of these things during that time, it was like during the launch, during the dream circle, it was like things were clearing out. So that was really emotional. Then in October, I also got this really strong call to clean up my money. The last time I had done this was in 2021. And so I deep dove into John and my accounts, and I cleared out hundreds of dollars of recurring monthly things that we didn't need. And I went through and I was like, here's what our expenses are. And I went through my business expenses, closing out aspects of my business and changing my accountant and changing how I really operate the money side of my business starting in 2024, and looking at our investments and like doing a lot of stuff. John and I moved this year, which that was a huge expense. Just going through that and being like, okay, where are we going to be at the end of the year? And like, where are we moving toward for next year? So that was a huge clear out, right? So it's like, there's these layers and layers of clearing out. There's the physical body, there's the emotional body, there's the energetic body. I did a lot of stomp dancing. Like I was doing a lot of that, just shaking the body and moving, and things needed to move out. That's what kept coming through. So that next layer was from within the body out, which is when I got that call of, I want to do some sort of parasite cleanse, only to find out that we were working with a plant in the projector dream circle. It's called mugwort. And we were drinking the tea, spraying the spray, taking a tincture, like, because it really helps in the dream realm. And Alyssa, the woman who was running the dream circle, informed me that mugwort is used as a parasite cleanser. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my body's getting mugwort. And it's like, we want more of this. So then I followed my next best alignment, right? Like, this is how I do things now. In the past, let me just be clear. I am no stranger to cleanses. I remember, I don't know how long ago this was, probably 10, 11, 12 years ago. I did one of my first cleanses ever. My dad and I did it. It was called Clean, and it was like a month cleanse. And I remember both my dad and I, like my mom, she looked at us, she's like, you guys look like you're just completely falling apart, like malnourished, you look sallow, you've lost so much weight. Like it was really intense, especially back then. And both my dad and I, we tend to lose weight really, really easily. Well, my whole family. And it's like, we don't want to lose weight. We need to keep weight on our bodies. And so when you do something like a cleanse, especially if you don't really know about it, we just lost so much weight. And that was like one of the first ones. But then later on, as I got certified in yoga and got into that world, I learned about Ayurveda and Khichdi cleanses, which was so different than what I'd done. Like I had done juice cleanses a lot. I'd done that clean one, which was really aggressive, or like the cayenne lemon cleanse, fasting, all that type of thing. But Khichdi is an eating cleanse, and you basically eat a mono diet, and it's like rice and lentils and vegetables and bone broth and coconut milk and ghee with like cilantro and coriander and cumin and fennel. It's all about balancing the properties of your body, your doshas. So bringing your body into a more grounded harmony. But of course, usually you're cutting out dairy and meat and caffeine and alcohol. So as I started to learn more about Ayurveda, like that type of cleansing really resonated with me. A food cleanse, right? You're eating. And I started doing that twice a year, spring and fall, when our bodies get the most out of balance at the change of season. So that was something really consistent. I got so into that I was leading Ayurvedic cleanses too for the community. But I think the last cleanse type thing I did was, well, I did the whole 30 and 20 17, and then I think I may have done a Khichdi cleanse in 2018 and maybe 2 in 2019, but nothing since 2020. And I hadn't felt called to, and I felt fine. My body feels fine. But all of a sudden, here we are. It was October, November 2023, probably 3 or 4 years since my last cleanse, and I'm starting to get that nudge. So I follow the nudge. And I was in another group where a woman in the group who I respect had been talking about a detox that she had done. She had never named it. And so I felt the call to reach out to her because this time I was like, I don't feel like doing the one I've always done. Like, I feel like I need to do something different. So I reach out to her. She tells me about the frequency tea and this parasite detox protocol. I look it up and I'm like, yes, this is it. This is what I want to do. It's a small business. They're really intentional products, la di da. So I ordered it. And the timing was just like so perfect because I did not plan this, but if I look back at how it came to be, I ordered it. We had changed daylight savings, which had sent me into like a deep hibernation. We went into daylight savings on November 5th, and then I like dropped into this deep hibernation. So then after that, I had something around my launch closing out. Then we had an eclipse. We had a solar eclipse. Then we had a full moon. Okay. And this was all within like a week and a half or something. Then I started my period. And the day my period ended was the day the cleanse arrived. Basically, all of these things happened at once, and each of them was representative of a clearing cycle. So, like a full moon had a bunch of release, the eclipse had a bunch of release attached to it from like cycles. Then, of course, my menstrual cycle was a bunch of release. And then these herbs arrived, and I started them the next day. And I had exactly 2.5 weeks until Thanksgiving where I was hosting. So I was like, I actually really feel called to do this now and not after Thanksgiving. So I started immediately. It was a 14-day detox, and it just felt so easy. I started it and it was easy. The tea tasted good. I read about it online and everyone's like, oh my God, I have to like plug my nose and drink the tea and it tastes terrible. And I drank it. I was like, no, this tastes fine. My body loves it. Eating that way felt super easy. Like it felt so easy. The first week that I did it, I had like nothing on my calendar. And it was dark and cold, and I just completely submitted to the energy. I didn't focus on anything outward. In fact, even my magical morning partner was out of town that week. And so what happened was, because my body was cleansing, I certainly didn't have as much energy, but everything felt good and easy. I kind of just naturally shut myself off from the world. And I did talk about this more in the hermiting episode, so I'm not going to go into that because we've already covered that. But I just fully allowed my body to dictate what we're doing. And it was like doing the cleanse gave me full permission to do that. Of course, we can do that at any time, but my mind was more accepting of it because it's like, we're cleansing, we have an open schedule, we're just going to do it. And it just felt so great and natural and easy for the first week. Then the second week on Sunday, the beginning of the second week, I looked at John and I said, I feel done with this. Well, I noticed that and acknowledged it. And I noticed my tendency to then just want to push through, right? Just push through, keep going, keep going. But instead, what I did was I said, okay, well, if you're really done with this, you're allowed to stop. And then when I said that, I thought to myself, well, what does stopping mean? Because it wasn't like I wanted alcohol. Like, I hadn't even been having alcohol before I started the cleanse. So it was like, that wasn't it. I was still having like a little tiny bit of coffee in the morning, like an ounce. So it's not like I wanted to just drink a ton of coffee. The food was tasting really good. So I didn't feel super restricted on the food. But then I was like, oh, I need protein. I'm not getting enough protein. I feel like a little weak. So what did I do that night? I made a meal that was basically the same as the food I'd been eating, except I just added meat. I think I added some ground beef. I made that on Monday because Monday I felt terrible and horrible and cranky and agitated. And then made the meat on Monday night. And Tuesday I woke up and I felt great. And I had energy and clarity. And I was like, wow, okay. So at that point, I didn't need to stop the cleanse because I was like, oh, I'm actually feeling quite a bit better. And so each day for that last week, I just did a check-in, and then I found out this was miscommunication, but I found out that my brother and sister-in-law were coming basically 4 days earlier than I thought they were coming for Thanksgiving, and they were gonna stay with us for the week. And I started to get stressed out because I was like, "Oh my god, I can't just, like, break the cleanse suddenly." So then the last few days of the cleanse, I just started adding a little bit, like, I had a little bit of dairy. I had like a bite of this, I had a sip of that, and I was just testing it and adding a tiny little bit of these things to my body so that come the cleanse ending, I didn't feel like I just went off the deep end, which is also really useful with a cleanse is it doesn't feel so good to go from full on cleanse to full off cleanse. I've learned that lesson so many times in the past where the day after the cleanse, I like eat a bunch of pancakes and maple syrup and a bunch of coffee, and then I have drinks that night, and it just your body doesn't like that. So to be able to gently add things back and not swing hard, it's just nicer to your body, and it allows the results to maintain. So that was it. I went all in and it was easy. And then I acknowledged when my body was like feeling done with it. And then I made adjustments as necessary and then started easing out a little bit before so that I would feel really aligned for what was coming next post cleanse. And it worked out well. I didn't feel sick with anything that I ate after the cleanse. I was able to eat Thanksgiving. I was able to have a couple drinks. And now that it's after Thanksgiving week, I'm kind of back to eating just really simply. Like, I'm not drinking a bunch. I'm still just drinking a tiny bit of coffee. I haven't really gone crazy with any food, and my body just feels really good. And now I'm on the other side of it, and I naturally am feeling like doing more workouts. So I'm moving my body, I'm lifting weights again and just getting back to a little more push energy because the cleanse was a really yin retreat, soft energy. And now I'm 2 weeks on the other side of it, and my body's like, oh, now we're ready for a little more fire. And it's not because my mind said, now that the cleanse is over, you have to work out or whatever. So I just want to point out there is a difference as you're moving into any sort of shift is who is dictating and guiding it? Is it your mind or is it your body? I was talking to a client the other day and she's been on this eating and movement program and she doesn't like it. And we went in and I asked her inner voice, I was like, inner voice, does she need a plan to get the physical results that she wants? And the inner voice is like, no. I said, well, why not, inner voice? And the inner voice said, when she releases the stress, she'll also release the weight. And one of the things that is causing her stress is a plan that she doesn't like. And I was like, oh my gosh. The stress is a contraction, a holding in the body, a resistance, of thinking things have to be a certain way to get a certain result. She wasn't enjoying the food she was eating. She wasn't enjoying the workouts she was doing. And guess what? She wasn't getting the results she wanted. We asked the inner voice what she might eat. And the inner voice was like soup, avocado toast, green juices, and fattier foods, in fact, the inner voice was recommending. And as she went through that, she came out and she's like, I feel already lighter. I feel so good and so excited to, instead of plan what my body eats and what it's supposed to do, I can flow with it. So the inner voice was like, choose your food each day. You don't have to do this big epic meal plan. Choose your movement each day. It doesn't mean you have to go to the gym 3 days a week, which means you can't do yoga when you want to do yoga, or you can't swim in your pool when you want to swim. It was like, just flow. And I know the minds out there are like screaming, you can't get results that way. But what if you could? And what if the result is less about like, I want to gain this much muscle, right? Obviously, if you're like a bodybuilder and you're trying to get your body to a certain place, like there is a mind component that you have to do. But like if you're just looking to feel good in your body, what if your body and your inner voice know what is right for you, whether it's a cleanse? And if it's a cleanse, like who to ask about it, right? Or whether it's releasing a plan that you'd been committed to and just flowing with it. What is going to make you energetically and emotionally feel lighter? And how can you embrace that? Like, what if your movement plan ends up restricting your movement because you're like, oh, I have to do leg day tomorrow, so I don't want to do a hike today. But what if that hike was actually the thing that was going to give you the most joy? So, what feels light? What feels easy? What feels enjoyable for your body? We're not here to punish the body. And when there's resistance in the mind around that, if your mind is like, no, this isn't possible, I have to do it this way, or I hate my body, or I'm so mad at my form, that is a time to check in and look at, okay, what emotions are blocking me from my inner voice? And if you go into the emotions, the resistance, the fear, the anger, the sadness that is surrounding that emotion, well, one, that energetic emotional release actually creates a physical release as well. And two, it will clear the docket so that you can really tune in and find out what is right and best for you in the moment. So I invite you, if it's a cleanse, do the cleanse, right? But don't do the cleanse because you think you need to do a cleanse. What if your body can tell you? What if you are being guided toward what you need and that's going to get you what you need and also what you want? And then the things that align for that will show up. Like when I was feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling a little weak, as in I want to feel stronger and my body wants to feel stronger. My body doesn't like being too light, and I tend to get too light. So when I was like, oh, weights would be fun, but like, ugh, I don't want to find this whole weight plan. I literally stumbled upon this woman who I follow who has an app, and the app is so fun and easy. And it's a 12-week weight plan, which by the way, I've started like 4 different times. I've never gotten past week 4, but that's okay. My mind isn't stressed about it because it loves that it's 3 days a week. It's a clear plan. It loves the workouts. And so when I want to do the weights, I do them. And I do them for the weeks. And then if I take time off, I take time off. I just started them again, right? And maybe I'll make it through the 12 weeks, maybe I don't. But it's like, what if we don't let the mind dictate and attach what has to happen? And instead we let the body guide. And of course, to do this, we need to be super attuned to the body, because I know it can be easy to fall into the cycle of like, lethargy, in that not doing anything causes the desire to not do anything except like scroll on your phone, and like you're getting dopamine from the phone instead of from a workout. So obviously we have to be really attuned and in tune with our physical bodies and the messages that they're communicating in order to take this approach. But also, choosing to take this approach will enhance your attunement to your body. And it's really powerful. But if we can release the emotions of like fear, I remember I wrote a whole blog post about the first time I stopped working out. I was a yoga teacher for years, and a requirement to teach was you had to practice 3 times a week. So when I quit teaching, I also quit practicing. And I said to myself, I am not going to do yoga or any exercise out of must or out of should, because I've done that for 5 years. And my mind freaked. It was like, I'm going to lose all of my skills. I'm going to lose all of the tricks that I've learned in yoga. I'm not going to be able to do a handstand. I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm going to gain weight. I'm going to lose muscle tone. Like, I'm not going to look good anymore. I'm not going to be strong. I'm not going to ever want to start back. Like, all of these stories. And so if I had continued to move at that point and exercise, it would have been out of fear. And so you got to ask yourself, like, if I'm doing something out of fear, what energy is that creating in my body? I firmly believe the energy that goes into the creation or the doing has a direct impact on the result of the doing. And that goes for everything, whether it's like you're writing content, whether you're cooking a meal, whether you're having a conversation, writing an email, selling a program, delivering a podcast, feeding your body, or exercising. There is a correlation there. And in the very simplest form, we all have probably heard about the rest and digest function. Like, we don't want to eat with a stress system because it literally affects your digestive tract, and you're not able to absorb the nutrients, and you're not able to process the food, and you get constipated, and like all these things happen. Like, that's a scientific thing. And I think about that with movement and with the ways of eating. This person too, when I was talking to them, they're like, oh, I want to be vegan again. I'm like, does your body want to be vegan, or does your mind associate veganism with being healthy? And in the past, it was the thing that worked for you. She's like, oh shit, that's it. I'm like, do you have to be vegan, or do you want to eat more vegetables? And do you have to eat meat every day? Of course not. But like, what if your body wants chicken one day? If your body wants protein, it will tell you. I had a friend who, she now eats meat regularly, but she was vegetarian forever. And she's like, and then every so often I crave chicken livers and then I eat them. And I'm like, I love that. We don't have to label of like, this is how I eat, this is how I don't eat. Even if you're doing a cleanse, it's radical because we want to follow the rules and do things right because we think doing things right is going to get us the result that we want. But what if the result that we want is coming from the body knowing what we need? Even if it's a cleanse, even if it's a workout plan, someone else's plan that they put together. Yes, it is designed to deliver results. And I don't know that we should be chasing the results over the communication from our bodies. Like, sometimes you're supposed to do a workout and you need a rest day, right? Sometimes you're supposed to be eating a vegan diet and you need some fucking meat. And supposed to, of course, is like, that's just based on whatever mind plan that you're following that someone else's mind created. So it's just a radical new way to approach this stuff. And, I would even take this as far as to talk about wearable devices. I mean, everyone's talking about the Aura Ring and mattresses that are tracking your sleep. Even the Apple Watch. Like, I've never worn the Apple Watch really because I see how they have a lot of value, right? And I know we are a culture obsessed with statistics. And I'm like, great, like I got to get my 10,000 steps. Like, and I see the value in that if someone is not moving, right? And you're disconnected from your body, it is really helpful to have visual representations of like, this is what I need to do. But as you get more and more attuned to your body, do you need a ring on your finger that says you didn't sleep enough? Or are you aware enough to know that you didn't sleep enough, right? Do you need something to vibrate and tell you to move? Or can you choose to tune into your body and let your body tell you when you need to move or rest? So I don't think there's exactly anything wrong with wearable devices, especially when you're just starting out. But as you become more of a ninja and more expert in your own body, I do believe that we should not outsource that communication. Like, I don't know that we should outsource a device to tell us what we should do and when we should do it, because your body is the smartest, most advanced device that you could ever put on and wear and be. And that device actually has the same data. It actually has the same communicators as the wearable ones. And it's fine. Like, if you think it's fun and you like your device, then great. But I have talked to many friends whose devices stress them out. And I'm like, take the fucking device off. You don't need it to tell you what you need to do. A lot of times it's like you're not sleeping and it's telling you you're not sleeping. It's creating more stress. And you're like, I hope tonight it shows that I sleep well. It's like it can create a stress cycle, right? And the same with like a diet plan of, if you're just starting out and you don't understand food and the mechanics, like, heck yeah, it is useful to have a plan. And thank goodness for the people who have created them, because that can get you going. But I believe for all of us, the ultimate plan is to be able to let our bodies dictate and guide us. And I remember reflecting to a friend while I was doing the cleanse, I said, I am so grateful that by now I know so much about food and nutrition and cleanses and like how to eat and how my body responds, because I can start up a cleanse without blinking. It's no big deal, and I can adjust it to my own needs without stressing of like, am I ruining it? Am I doing it wrong? Am I messing up? Am I going to get the results I want? Because I've done it for so long and because I've spent so much time getting to know the signals from my body, it all becomes easier. So I just wanted to like plug that in there, is even like the water jugs. They're like, you have to drink a gallon of water a day. I'm like, do are you thirsty? Like, to me, that often shows how disconnected we are from our bodies. And I do it too. Don't get me wrong. Like, this all happens to me too, where you have to have a water bottle to tell you to drink water. Like, if you're thirsty, we should drink water. And also, drinking a gallon of water, if you're not getting electrolytes and trace minerals, like, you can actually wash more minerals away than you're keeping. And there's a lot of overhydration, right? It's like we can go to any end of the spectrum. A lot of times our plans can put us too far on like the obsessive spectrum of our health. And then our disconnect from our body puts us too on the spectrum of like not well. And so the harmony, the balance is like being able to feel the extremes in your own body and, experiencing a plan. I remember after I did the Whole30, the day we were done, I literally called John crying in the grocery store because I was like, there's nothing I can eat here. And I was starving because we were done with it and I didn't have any meal plans. And I was like obsessively reading labels and there was like sugar in things. And I'm like, I can't eat this. There's sugar. And John's like, well, just go home and like have a glass of wine. Chill. I was like, I can't drink wine. It's poison. And I was crying. This was back in 2017, because something that was quote unquote so good for me created such a complex that I was frozen and was afraid of all food. Okay, that's an extreme. I believe there's a term for extreme working out and eating healthy, quote unquote, is like orthorexia, right? So it's like anything can be taken to the extreme. And what makes it easier to go to an extreme is when we're disconnected from our bodies. And then when the mind is too involved, just like when I was like, oh my God, I felt done with the cleanse, that wasn't fully true. And then like the mind defined heart in me was like, just keep pushing through regardless. That wasn't fully true. And there was actually this in between of, oh, I need protein. I'm hungry. I'm not actually fueling myself enough. I need to eat more and I'm going to add meat and that will help. And meat didn't kill me. It didn't ruin the cleanse. You know what I mean? So there's an in between here. And I think that exists for all of us. And I also believe that shifts and changes with the season. It shifts and changes with your stage in life. For women, it shifts and changes with your menstrual cycle. I shared this on another episode. I don't know if it's out yet by the time this comes out, but when we first moved to our house, like I was eating carrot cake like 3-4 times a week, these giant chunks of carrot cake, and it felt so good. And then I went one day to buy carrot cake again because I'd been eating carrot cake for 2 weeks, and I'm like, "This is what we do now." And I had the carrot cake, and it no longer tastes good. And I was like, "No, I love my carrot cake." But the carrot cake was serving a very specific and important process of supporting and regulating my body during a time of extreme stress and change and upheaval, right? We had just moved to this new place. But then when my body found its own rhythm, it no longer needed the carrot cake. And guess how I knew? Because it didn't taste good anymore. And I mourned it. I remember telling my coach, I was like, "I miss carrot cake." And I bought it and I ate it and it didn't feel good anymore. That is the level of attunement that we can have. You can eat the cake. I had my cookies today. They were so good, right? Sometimes coffee tastes really good. And when the coffee stops tasting good, I know that's my body saying we need a break from coffee. Sometimes alcohol goes down really well and I'm enjoying having a cocktail. And lately, it just doesn't. And so why have the thing that doesn't taste good? Because your taste and your palate and your body, sometimes movement feels great. And sometimes I need a week like my hermit week where I didn't even leave the house for a week. It didn't work out. I didn't even go on my walks. And I usually go on my walks most days. So I just want to share this as this beautiful reminder of you are your best expert. And yes, you can play in all of the realms, right? Like there is such a huge business of health, and a lot of it is really beautiful content for us. But what your body needs and when it needs it will become more and more clear to you as you choose to learn the language of your body, as you choose to shed the emotions of fear around what if. And the more connected you are, the more you're going to be able to access the wisdom of you, your inner voice, and the messages from your body. And you'll be in a deeper rhythm with your own natural cycles. And you'll feel more calm and at ease because you can trust what is coming through more than the external plan or the mind's idea of what should be happening. So, Ooh, what a fun episode. This all started with me eating a cookie and thinking, what do I want to talk about? So, thank you as always for listening. I hope this episode gave you exactly what you needed. If this is something that resonates with you or you think it would resonate with someone you know, please share it. Most of my business is just based on networking and sharing and people liking it and reviewing it. If you have a chance, definitely review on iTunes. Those reviews help so much. Plus, I cry when I read them. I talk here to myself, to you all, but I'm by myself in a room alone. And to hear your take on the podcast really, it reminds me how connected we all are and why I'm actually doing this, right? I love to talk, but deeply, I hope that my perspective and my shares and my experiences and me sharing as things unfold and as I am shifting for myself, that has a greater ripple effect and it is serving you all as well. So thank you as always for listening, and I'll catch you next week on the Tuning In podcast. Thank you for joining me in another episode of the Tuning In podcast. If you loved this episode, please rate and review it or share it with a friend. If you want to go deeper into the realm of emotions and learn the language of your body, check out my audio course, Emotions Decoded, at alignful.com/audio. As always, you can follow along with my journey on Instagram at Dana_Evans. See you next week.